The Galaxy Council had watched Earth for centuries, cataloging every action, every thought, every war fought, and every disaster survived. To them, humanity was an amusing anomaly, a species barely capable of organizing itself, let alone challenging the intricate order of interstellar civilization. They had dossiers filled with reports, primitive, chaotic, short-sighted, fragile. They did not anticipate cunning. They did not anticipate pride. They did not anticipate revenge. First contact had been a disaster of arrogance. The Council's representatives had gathered in orbit around the Jewel Nebula, their floating throne cities shimmering like a swarm of jewels in zero gravity. Tentacled, scaled, crystalline, winged, they represented hundreds of civilizations, each one believing they were the apex of intelligence. And they believed the humans were nothing. When the human envoy arrived, there was no fanfare. No massive fleet. No demand for audience or ceremony. Just a single vessel, sleek and understated, gliding into the Council's observation zone. And a hologram, a projection of a man in a dark, tailored suit, standing with a calm that was anything but ordinary. "I've been instructed to extend Earth's gratitude for your guidance," he said, voice smooth as obsidian. "And to inform you, in the clearest terms possible, we no longer require your oversight." The Council froze. Tentacles twitched. Crystalline facets shone with disbelief. Wings beat against invisible walls. "You cannot!" shrieked the voice of the Lyran High Magistrate, a creature of pure, psychic resonance. "You do not comprehend the magnitude of this declaration. The consequences." "Save it," the human interrupted, expression unchanged. "We understand perfectly. And we've decided, humanity will leave the Council. Permanently. And while we're at it, we'll ensure you remember why underestimating us was a mistake." Panic erupted. The Council scrambled, broadcasting alerts, activating defense grids, igniting energy nets, and deploying scout swarms. They assumed the humans had no fleet. They assumed Earth was defenseless. They were wrong. From the shadows of the solar system, unseen until the last possible moment, humanity's fleet emerged. Not in overwhelming numbers, but in ways the Council could not predict. Ships moved with impossible geometry, weaving through space like living instruments, each maneuver a precise counter to the Council's centuries-old strategies. "We've watched you for centuries," the human envoy said. "We've learned how you operate, what you fear, and what you underestimate. And you've underestimated us." The first strike wasn't even offensive. It was strategic. Council scouts, attempting to track the humans, found themselves trapped in a temporal anomaly, an orbiting field around Earth's moon that made their instruments meaningless. Reports scrambled, sensors looped, and by the time the Council realized their mistakes, their most trusted assets were already disabled. Tentacles twitched in fury, claws lashed in frustration, psychic beams flared, but the humans remained calm. Each member of the Council had underestimated the one thing humans excelled at: chaos with precision. The human envoy's smirk was the last thing they saw before their carefully maintained order unraveled. "You love control," he said. "You assume safety. You assume predictability. We've learned from that." Council fleets were marshaled in panic, rushing into defensive positions, firing energy beams, plasma lances, and weaponized gravity fields. The humans observed, calculating. They allowed the first volleys to strike, only to redirect them harmlessly through phased shields. Every attack that came was a teaching moment for the Council. Every assumption they made was already obsolete. And then came the first human counter, a series of orbital disruptions so subtle, so perfectly timed, that the Council didn't realize the attack had begun until their scout vessels disintegrated in cascading energy feedback. Their communications networks overloaded, their formation broke apart, and their first shockwaves of panic rippled through the Council like a virus. Tentacles twitched. Wings flared. Crystal facets shattered. "Impossible! Their fleet cannot. They can," the human envoy replied. "Because you taught them. You taught us your weaknesses. And now we're taking your arrogance, one piece at a time." The envoy's words hung in the void like a sword. Across the Council's throne cities, the representatives shivered. Every civilization had assumed humans would beg, negotiate, yield. Every species had assumed superiority. And every assumption was wrong. From Earth's orbit, the humans launched their second act of cunning. Small, stealth drones, roughly the size of a human fist, glided silently into the Council's command chambers. Not to destroy, but to observe. To record. To anticipate. Within hours, the humans knew every code, every contingency, every weakness of the Council's fleet formations. And the galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity, the species they had dismissed as fragile, insignificant, and disorganized, prepared to strike with a precision that no alien mind could predict. The envoy's calm was absolute. "We've done what you cannot," he said. "We've survived. We've thrived. And now, we decide." The Council sent another wave of emissaries, pleading and threatening in unison. "Earth! You are reckless! You will ignite a war that consumes you all!" The human envoy tilted his head. "War is already here," he said. "And we've been preparing for it since the day you first catalogued us as primitive." And in that moment, the universe realized, this was not diplomacy. This was not negotiation. This was humanity, stepping into the void, and rewriting the rules of the game entirely on their terms. The Council had expected chaos, but not genius. They had expected defiance, but not terror. And they had certainly not expected the one thing that would soon echo across 1,000 star systems: humans do not retreat. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy held its breath. And Earth smiled. The Council panicked. Orders flared across the void like lightning, tentacles lashed, crystalline wings shimmered with deadly energy, psychic amplifiers screamed, but the humans were ready. They weren't just fighting to defend their planet. They were fighting to rewrite the rules of every species that had ever dared to underestimate them. The first clash was in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, a no-man's land the Council had considered a perfect ambush zone. Tens of thousands of ships converged, forming layers of overlapping defenses, energy shields glittering like a fractured rainbow. Council generals assumed numerical superiority would guarantee victory. They assumed human ships would be clumsy, predictable, and fragile. They were wrong. From the shadows of the belt, human fighters appeared. Sleek, angular vessels with no uniform pattern, each one moved as if alive, weaving through the Council's defenses with preternatural speed. Every maneuver was calculated, yet unpredictable. One moment, they were flanking the Lyran dreadnoughts. The next, they were slamming into the flank of the Orphanian plague carriers, launching micro-missiles that spread like a virus through hulls and systems. "Formation Delta! Seal the breach!" The Orphanian commander screamed, claws raking through the air. Energy weapons lanced forward, but every strike was anticipated, every trap already bypassed. "They think they can trap us," a human pilot muttered into comms, voice rough, soaked with adrenaline. "They think we're scared. Guess what, rookies? Fear doesn't work on us. Chaos does." Human orbital platforms erupted in synchronized attacks. These relics, long dismissed as obsolete, were turned into instruments of calculated terror. Laser arrays fired in impossible sequences, electromagnetic pulses disorienting Council sensors, collapsing entire wings of ships into themselves. Explosions didn't just destroy, they mutated. Each destroyed drone scattered fragments of AI logic that latched onto the enemy, turning them against each other in cascading errors. Council generals were in chaos. "Impossible! Our fleet it's self-destructing? No, it cannot be. These humans, they think like us. They anticipate. They learn from us." The envoy's voice cut across the void, calm and razor-sharp. "Predictable. Arrogant. Reckless. And we're repaying every insult, every assumption, every slight." By now, the humans had initiated what would be remembered as the Veil Maneuver, a coordinated assault that no alien species had ever seen. Entire fleets were misdirected into phantom hyperspace corridors. Council ships turned on each other, mistaking allies for enemies. The humans weren't just fighting, They were orchestrating a symphony of destruction, with every note tuned to exploit arrogance and fear. Then came the first real shock: the humans unleashed bioquantum drones. These were not mere machines, they were semi-sentient, adaptive constructs that replicated when destroyed. A single destroyed human ship could yield two smaller, faster, deadlier replicas, each armed with fragments of tactical AI. Within hours, the Council's vanguard was overwhelmed, not by numbers alone, but by impossible escalation. Tentacles flailed in panic, crystalline wings cracked under psychic strain. Council commanders issued desperate orders. Regroup! Regroup and concentrate fire! But concentration was precisely what humanity anticipated. Every attack was a trap, every retreat a calculated advance. Brace for impact, a human captain said, voice low, teeth gritted. This is the part where they realize we're not just deflecting. We're rewriting the game. The Council's most feared warships were the first to fall. Lyran dreadnoughts twisted in space as human projectiles detonated in phased synchronization, creating ripples that destabilized energy shields. Orphanian bioships dissolved under quantum feedback, their pathogens rendered inert in mere milliseconds. And the crystalline ships, once thought unassailable, shattered as tactical EMP pulses overloaded their resonant cores. Amid the chaos, the human Enva's voice echoed across comms channels captured from the Council. Do you yield? He asked, almost rhetorically. Do you understand now why you underestimated us? Your arrogance made this easy. Your fear will make it unforgettable. Council species tried to retaliate. Energy storms, psychic assaults, orbital bombardments, all unleashed in furious bursts. Yet every human ship moved like a ghost, slipping between attacks, absorbing damage in ways that seemed impossible. Human ingenuity had turned the very physics of space into a weapon. They did not merely survive, they dominated. And then came the most terrifying blow: humanity's resource sabotage. From 100 unseen points, human teams hacked Council supply lines, rerouted energy cores, and released subtle but devastating viruses into interstellar navigation systems. Within hours, entire fleets were stranded in dead zones, unable to warp, powerless, isolated. Ships that had been the pinnacle of alien engineering were now floating tombs. One Zillion general, tentacles twitching violently, screamed into his comms. They've done it! They've turned everything against us. They learned from watching you. The envoy's voice replied, calm as a scalpel slicing through fear. We observed your strategies, your overconfidence, your assumptions. And now you pay the price. Even amid victory, humanity's humor was dark. From Earth's orbital stations, humans sent targeted comms transmissions, simple messages that demoralized the enemy. Next time, try reading the manual before attacking us. For the first time, the Council realized the horrifying truth: humans weren't just fighting back. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson about pride, about arrogance, about the danger of underestimating a species that had survived plagues, wars, and extinction events without losing ingenuity, cunning, or ferocity. And as the first Council fleets fell into disarray, humanity's envoy allowed himself a thin, satisfied smile. This is just the beginning, he said. We didn't start this war. We just intend to finish it our way. The galaxy had underestimated humans. The Council had mocked Earth as chaotic, primitive, and reckless. And now, as fleets twisted and disintegrated in the void, they understood. Humans were terrifying not because of technology alone, but because of will, cunning, and the cold, calculating audacity that had allowed them to survive against every odds stacked against them. Chaos reigned in the asteroid belt, yet humanity thrived. In the center of it all, the envoy looked at the void, at the shattered remnants of what was once considered unbeatable, and whispered, "We didn't fight to win. We fought to remind the galaxy, you never saw us coming." The Council believed they could recover. They believed that after the initial humiliation, after the losses in the asteroid belt, their fleets could regroup, repair, and punish humanity for their insolence. They were wrong. Earth had planned for this contingency long before the first envoy had ever boarded a Council chamber. Humans had studied the weaknesses of every alien empire, their reliance on centralized command structures, their inflexible tactical doctrines, their addiction to protocol. And they had exploited them mercilessly. It started with the communications network. Across every star system under Council influence, human engineers unleashed a digital plague. Not a virus that destroyed data, it was subtler, crueler. Commands were misrouted, sensors were misread, and strategic directives began contradicting each other. Council officers fired at targets that weren't there, activated defense grids that sabotaged their own ships, and began to distrust even their most trusted subordinates. "What is happening?" shrieked the Orphanian admiral. His claws trembled as every fleet under his command malfunctioned. "Our orders, they cannot, how? They're learning from us." The human envoy's calm voice echoed in the Council's own calm frequencies, intercepted and replayed. "Every move you make, every assumption, every act of arrogance, recorded, studied, exploited. You taught us to fight by your rules. And now your rules are broken." While the Council flailed, humans struck with surgical precision. Starports exploded, not in fireballs alone, but with repurposed Council technology. Weapons designed to obliterate planets were redirected to drain energy from their own systems. Dreadnoughts, the supposed pinnacle of alien engineering, were stranded in orbit around dead moons, engines frozen, shields down, unable to warp. And humanity did something no one had predicted. They didn't just destroy, they humiliated. Projected holograms appeared across the Council's capital systems, showing fleets collapsing under their own errors, entire empires paralyzed by their own arrogance. A single image of the human envoy's smirking face flickered across every command console. "Did you really think you could control us?" Tentacles curled in rage. Crystal wings quivered. Psyches screamed. Entire civilizations felt the bite of terror, not from weapons alone, but from understanding that their knowledge, their technology, their centuries of study, had been turned against them. Humans had weaponized the predictability of alien arrogance. Then came the coup de grace, the economic strike. Earth's engineers had infiltrated interstellar trade networks, energy conduits, resource banks, and even the Council's credit exchanges. Within hours, entire supply lines collapsed. Ships starved for fuel. Fleets floated powerless in dark space. Planets lost essential energy, infrastructure shut down, and Council bureaucracies ground to a halt. The Council had trained to deal with war. They had trained to defend against fire, claws, psychic energy. They had not trained for humans who understood leverage, timing, and systemic disruption. For the first time, they realized they were not fighting weapons alone, they were fighting strategy incarnate. A Lyran elder whispered, trembling. They aren't just attacking us, they're attacking the very framework of our civilization. They're human," another voice replied, but it sounded hollow, fearful. They always survive." The humans didn't gloat, at least not overtly. Their humor was quiet, surgical, broadcast in taunting snippets across Council frequencies. "Next time, try reading the manual before attacking us. Do you have a moment to discuss your overconfidence? We hope you enjoy your stay in dead space. Don't forget to send a postcard." By now, the Council's fleets were fractured, their command networks compromised, and their empires in chaos. Ships that had once been symbols of unassailable power were now floating tombs, lost to space and to humanity's quiet, relentless genius. In the midst of it all, humans executed the final, psychologically devastating move. They left behind seeds of intelligence in every system they touched. Small, adaptive AI constructs, fragments of human tactical logic embedded in the remnants of every Council system. These constructs didn't just destroy, they taught lessons. Council fleets that survived were plagued by errors that mimicked human strategy. Generals began doubting themselves, councils began doubting each other. And everywhere, the specter of humanity loomed large. The envoy observed the chaos from the bridge of his flagship, calm as the void itself. Beside him, a young officer asked, voice barely above a whisper, "Sir, did we break them?" The envoy's lips curved in a faint smile. "We didn't just break them," he said. We reminded them why they should have feared us from the start. Fear is cheap. Respect is earned. And we've just earned a galaxy's worth. The Council attempted one last negotiation, a desperate, collective broadcast across the void. Tentacles, wings, psychic projections, holographic transmissions, all pleading, demanding, threatening. Surrender! They cried. Earth! You do not understand what you face. You will pay! Humans responded with simplicity, and with elegance. From the surface of the moon, massive holograms flickered to life, a single image stretching across the void, smiling. We understand perfectly, the Envoy said. And we've already paid. With our patience. With our planning. And now, it's your turn. The galaxy recoiled. Never had a species turned retreat into domination, strategy into terror, or departure into an act of overwhelming control. Every species, from the most ancient to the youngest colonies, realized in that moment that humanity's cunning was not a trick of weapons, but a reflection of survival, will, and audacity refined over millennia. The Council's most seasoned warlord, a being whose battles had spanned galaxies, whispered into the void, trembling. We didn't see it coming. We never even saw it. And humanity smiled. They never did. The galaxy had gone silent. Not the quiet of peace, but the trembling silence of fear. Across star systems once governed by the Galaxy Council, ships floated powerless, worlds went dark, and generals whispered rumors of a species they had called primitive, now capable of dismantling empires with a smile. Earth did not celebrate. Humans were survivors, and survival demanded vigilance. They had won, yes, but winning meant responsibility, foresight, and a constant awareness that every species humiliated today might rise in fury tomorrow. On the bridge of the flagship, the human envoy observed the void. Fragments of council ships drifted like shards of shattered pride, glimmering in the cold light of distant suns. The tactical map displayed every crippled fleet, every collapsed system, every vulnerable capital world. And yet, the envoy's expression remained calm, almost serene. Victory was not a cheer. It was a calculation. A young officer approached, face pale under the flickering displays. Sir, do we truly have control over the galaxy now? The envoy tilted his head, a faint smirk playing across his features. Control is an illusion. Fear is real. And we've earned that. The Council underestimated humanity. Every species that has done the same will now learn the consequences. Across the void, tentative comm signals began to ripple through the crippled council systems. Some leaders were begging for mercy, others vowing revenge, and a few, shaken beyond recognition, simply went silent. Earth ignored them. Humans did not negotiate. Humans did not grovel. Humans had rewritten the rules. The galaxy would think twice before underestimating them again. But humanity's victory was not without complexity. With each collapsed system, each crippled fleet, each empire thrown into chaos, ethical questions surfaced. Could humans leave these species to recover? Would the Council retaliate someday with forces unimaginable? And yet, despite these dangers, there was a profound satisfaction in having outmaneuvered centuries of arrogance, in having survived when others assumed humanity would fail. The envoy's comm panel flickered, displaying a report of the Council's surviving high-ranking members. A small, defiant faction had fled into uncharted space, their psyches shattered by failure, their fleets hollow shells of what they once were. They will plot revenge, the officer said, voice tinged with concern. The envoy's gaze hardened. Let them plot. We will be ready. But for now, we observe. We learn. And we thrive. Survival is not just about victory. It's about living to see tomorrow. And humanity will always see tomorrow. Meanwhile, humanity's ships began the slow process of consolidation. Strategic resources were salvaged, orbital defenses repositioned, and fleets reorganized into networks that were stronger, smarter, and faster than ever before. Every system touched by human strategy was now a fortress, and every soldier, pilot, and engineer understood one immutable truth: the galaxy had underestimated them, and they would never make that mistake again. Humor, ever a quiet weapon of humanity, persisted even in triumph. Targeted holograms flashed across surviving council outposts. We hope you enjoy your stay in the void. Next time, consider reading the manual. Do not feed the humans, they bite. The council's surviving warlords could only tremble as human propaganda, sharp, precise, and mercilessly witty, broadcast their humiliation across every system. Alien species that had once sneered at Earth now whispered in fear, sharing rumors of humans who had survived near extinction, plagues, and war, and emerged smarter, faster, and far more terrifying than any simulation had predicted. On the moon, the envoy stood overlooking the Earthrise. He was alone, save for a small cadre of officers, their faces weary but unbroken. We've won, said one, voice barely above a whisper. But at what cost? The envoy's eyes scanned the horizon, reflecting the cold brilliance of space. The cost? He repeated. The cost is that we finally understand what it means to be truly human. We survive. We endure. We adapt. We fight. And when the universe doubts us, we remind it, mercilessly, why survival is not given. It's earned. For centuries, humanity had been catalogued, mocked, and underestimated. Today, they had rewritten that narrative. Not with idle threats, not with diplomacy, not with empty promises, but with strategy, ingenuity, audacity, and relentless execution. The Council had underestimated them at every step, and the galaxy would remember. The envoy turned to the officer beside him. Prepare the fleets, he said. Send scouts to the uncharted systems. Begin establishing observation posts. Make no mistake, other species will attempt to rise against us. But humanity is ready. Always ready. And if anyone doubts that, well, they'll find out exactly why we are the species they should have feared from the start. And in the distance, the stars seemed to glimmer with a subtle acknowledgement. The galaxy had been changed. The council had been broken. Empires trembled at the quiet, unyielding will of a species they had once dismissed. And humanity, relentless, cunning, and terrifyingly clever, had emerged not just victorious, but immortal in reputation. Finally, the envoy allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The universe will panic, he said softly. They will whisper our name, fear our tactics, and study our methods for centuries. But remember this, we did not start this war. We survived it. We thrived. And we will endure long after every empire that ever thought itself superior has crumbled. The young officer nodded, understanding at last the weight of what had been accomplished. And Earth? The envoy looked down at the blue planet rising over the lunar horizon, a fragile jewel in a vast void. Earth remains ours. Untouched. Unbroken. And as long as we are willing, it will remain that way. The Council may rebuild. Others may rise. But humanity will always be the species they never see coming. And somewhere, far in the depths of space, the remnants of the Council whispered their last confessions, trembling at the thought of a species that had defied every expectation. Humans smiled. They never did. The void was silent once more, but it was no longer empty. It was alive with the memory of a single planet and its unyielding people, a species that had severed ties, rewritten the rules, and left the galaxy trembling in awe and fear. The stars watched as humanity settled into its new reality. The Council had been humbled. The galaxy had been warned. And Earth remained unbroken, untouchable, and ready for anything.